Talking today with Marty Gitlin. He is the author of A Celebration of Animation, the 100 Greatest Cartoon Characters in Television History. And he'll be presenting a program to tell us all about this book and the characters within it on Wednesday evening, October 21st, starting at 7 o'clock. Cartoons can bring so much joy. It's an amazing amount of work. There's so much labor involved, but there's something that's just so playful about them. Do you remember when you first fell in love with cartoons? I assume you have a love of cartoons, otherwise you wouldn't write a book.
I think I might have fallen in love with cartoons before my memory would allow me to remember when I fell in love with cartoons.
Fair enough.
Because I was watching them. But Saturday mornings was really the time for me. I would have my big bowl of cereal in front of me on Saturday mornings. And I usually like to sleep in on the weekends, school days and all. But on Saturday mornings was different. It was 8 in the morning. And I watched 4 hours of cartoons from 8 to noon, because that was when, and I'm old, I'm 63 years old. I don't know if people remember this, but there were only 3 channels at that time, so ABC, NBC, and CBS, and they had 4 hours of cartoons. I watched 2 hours of Warner Brothers, Merry Melodies and all the great Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and all my favorites. Yosemite Sam happens to be my very favorite cartoon character of all time. And there was an hour of Hanna-Barbera, and I loved, Magilla Gorilla and Yogi Bear. And I just...
He-Man was later. When did He-Man come around?
Oh, He-Man was fairly early at that time. But when and I'll explain what happened. I have a book out, and the program's based on a book called A Celebration of Animation, the 100 Greatest Cartoon Characters in Television History. We're the only authors to rank the greatest cartoon characters of all time. Now, when I was a kid, and then when I was older and had my kids, I really only watched and really loved funny cartoons. So when we wrote this book, I wrote all the entries for the funny cartoon characters, and my co-author, his name is Joe Wose. He's the resident cartoonist for the Charles Schulz Museum in Santa Rosa, California. He's one of the foremost experts. He's one of the foremost experts at cartoon characters in the country. But anyway, he wrote all the superheroes and serious and evil cartoon characters, the entries for those. So we were able to put the best use of our knowledge to use. And so I didn't really watch He-Man specifically, and I didn't really watch a lot of the superhero characters and cartoons. I watched the funny ones. Okay. And so that's those are the ones I'm an expert at, and those are the ones that I wrote about in our book.
I'm just trying to think. So we should specify we're talking about animated cartoons. We're not talking about the Sunday comic strips, because when I started thinking, I was immediately going in my brain and thinking of non-serious. I'm thinking about Opus, and I'm thinking about the serious ones as a contrast. I was thinking about Opus and Doonesbury, but those were never animated. We're talking about really the painstaking work of all the cells. This was all done by hand and painted once upon a time.
Exactly, and there were characters that we had to decide whether we would actually include them in the book, because they were originally comic strip characters, like the Peanuts characters, Snoopy and Charlie Brown and Lucy. Well, these characters were originally comic strip characters, and we had to decide whether we were going to include them in the book, but they became so famous as animated characters as well, with all the holiday specials and everything, that we decided to include them in the book. In fact, we have Snoopy ranked number 6 among our top
spoiler
of all time. It's really, because he's so beloved and so memorable that we have Charlie Brown ranked in our top 50, I believe, as well. We threw about 200 cartoon characters out there when we were deciding on our top 100, and we narrowed it down to 150, then we narrowed it down to 125, and we finally got our top 100. And there were some great characters that didn't make the book, because if you're in our top 100 cartoon characters of all time, you're a great character, and we use a lot of different criteria to rank them. We had 4 basic criteria, and some other ones too. Legacy, how long these characters have remained in the American consciousness, and how much they impacted American pop culture. A personality, whether they were evil characters or funny characters or superheroes, how well their personalities matched. Voice, uniqueness of voice, do they have cool voices?
So Scooby-Doo or Shaggy, some of those guys have got to be in here.
Scooby-Doo's way up there. I won't tell you where it's Scooby-Doo is ranked, Scooby and Shaggy, but top 20.
All right, nice.
We ranked them top 20 of all time. And also, how much these particular characters impacted the shows that they were on. If they were on particular cartoon shows, how much of an impact they made on those shows. So those were the four basic, criteria that we used. Yeah. And I talk a little bit about that in the program too, the criteria that we use to rank these characters.
I'm wondering, there had to be so many that didn't make the cut. Did you find that, I mean, you already mentioned, I think in some ways cartoons are generational. So like, maybe the cartoons that I enjoyed were different than, I'm not that much younger than you, but I know that like, what my kids have enjoyed, and it's radically changed. I mean, there's been Ren and Stimpy and SpongeBob and all these that are more current. How do you compare even a Ren and Stimpy or a SpongeBob to Snoopy? I mean, they're both drawn, but like generational. It's so different.
Well, there are two basic, cartoon characters in terms of chronology. There was the pre-television and post-television theatrical shorts period. Obviously, all the Woody Woodpecker and all the Warner Brothers characters and Disney, they were shown before movies and during, in between double features and so forth. Then there was post-television, and post-television, in a lot of ways, the animation wasn't as strong. The animation suffered once television came around because the animators and everyone involved had to work so much faster. They had to come up with new cartoons every day or every week, and the animation just wasn't as strong. But that doesn't mean there weren't a lot of great cartoon characters that were developed during the early television era. I mean, my very favorite, the animation's pretty weak, really, but my very favorite cartoon character in television history is Bullwinkle. Very engaging character, yet the animation itself was not, particularly strong in those cartoons. So we based them all on the era in which they were most famous. Although it's blurred because Bugs Bunny is probably just as famous now as he was in 1947 or whatever, maybe even more so. And so it's some of these characters, and that's why legacy is so important in our rankings. If these characters have made an impact on American pop culture for 70, 80, 90 years, we have characters from the last 20 years that are in our top 10, and they're evil. That I won't give away who they are. We have two very evil characters that are in our top 10 that are current characters.
Like, I've certainly been watching The Simpsons for a long time, and I have to imagine that they've ranked fairly high because they've had such a staying power.
We have 3 Simpsons characters in our top 100, and one of them is ranked exceptionally high. I won't give away who it is.
Oh, I can guess. Yeah, don't have a cowman.
Right. Well, I won't say anything.
No, it's fair. I'm not asking you to. I wonder how you deal, like in The Simpsons, there was a movie a couple of years ago that took on, and sometimes, cartoons, they do say something about the times that they were produced in and about the culture they come from. I'm thinking about the kind of the controversy around Apu, and how Hank Azaria has decided he's no longer going to voice Apu because of the stereotyping of the Indian communities. I don't know if you took on any cultural representation when you were looking at these two and took that as a factor. A lot of them, a lot of Chinese people go into cartooning because they can display lots of different ideas and emotions, and they don't get ascribed to a particular ethnicity or cultural background. They, what is it? The Texan that you talked about, your favorite. What was his name again? Yosemite Sam. He's kind of stereotyped, but yeah.
Oh yeah, oh definitely, and there's a lot of talk about violence in cartoons as well, but we, this was important in the program that I talk about, the way that especially not the way these characters have been animated, but the writing in these cartoon shows has changed. Like, for instance, nowadays these writers are getting a lot more involved in the social aspects of, like, the way, social issues that kids might have. There's a character named Timmy in the Fairly Odd Parents, and he has real issues with his babysitter and his parents and so forth. It's a funny cartoon show, but but they get a little bit involved in that. There's a character named Tina Belcher on Bob's Burgers, which is a current show.
Oh yeah, they definitely try to be current.
Yeah, and she's 13 years old, but she sounds like a boy, and she's very awkward and doesn't have a whole lot of confidence in herself, and they they play off that a little bit. So times have changed. It's not like it used to be, but that doesn't mean they're not great characters. They're just a little bit the reason that I have both those characters in our book, especially the Fairly Odd Parents. I have the Fairly Odd Parents themselves. But anyway, the reason I talk about them and they made our book is because there's a lot of depth to these characters. There's a lot of emotion, not just humor, and they're not one dimensional. So sure, I mean that's always a factor, and I talk a lot about that in the program.
You're mentioning Bob's Burgers took me back to listening to the soundtrack. I don't know if you ever heard. They've done at least one soundtrack for that comic series, which you can listen to. And it's like because music is such a part of it. And there's been great music in all these. We could probably do a whole celebration of animation, the music behind it, because that's evolved too. It's been fascinating.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, and especially like when I was a kid, I used to love the music in the intros to the shows. I mean, we got a gorilla for sale, Magilla gorilla for sale. Magilla gorilla was my favorite Hanna-Barbera character, and I just loved that stuff. And it just filled me with excitement and anticipation to watch these shows. The lead-in music.
Oh, absolutely. It's super rich. That's great. So I think we should tell people there's going to be clips that are going to be shared during this program too. You have a number of clips, so we'll actually be able to go back and see it with new eyes, but also just relive some of this joy. Yeah.
And I definitely wanted to, and I do it this way on purpose. I play only funny cartoons. Mm-hmm. And because I know them the best, and I think they're the most engaging, the most entertaining. And I have cartoons for the last 92 years in here in the program. I show the first talkie from 1928, and I won't give that away. People think it's Steamboat Willie, a Mickey Mouse cartoon, but it's not. So I won't give it away. And then I move forward chronologically. I show a Bugs Bunny, and I show different cartoon snippets all the way up to today. And they're funny, they're engaging, and I also have trivia. I play the voices of cartoon characters, and the patrons have to guess who the voices are, and I have some other trivia. And once again, I talk about the criteria, but I also try to be as engaging as I can with kids and teens. I want to make this program, and it's proven to be really, really attractive to all ages. And I want to stress that it's really something that families can gather around and watch these cartoons and have a really good time with and challenge themselves with these. Some of them are a little easier, some are a little harder, these trivia questions and voices and things. They're just, the bottom line is I just try to make it as fun as I can.
I'm really grateful that you're bringing, a program that can help just bring, some humor and some light, some levity these days. And sometimes these days can be pretty hard lately. So I think this is just a great time for you to be sharing this program with us. And I really appreciate it, Marty. Thank you.
Oh, hey, it's going to be my pleasure. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm totally looking forward to it too. I guess just one word of encouragement. If folks attend and they get really excited, did you find most of these cartoons online? Do you find like there's ways to, dive really deep? I know YouTube's got, endless sources, but where do you usually go when you're looking for your clips?
The vast majority of my clips have been from YouTube and Dailymotion.
Dailymotion.
All right. I have a couple other ones that are, I'm trying to remember where I got them. I got them a couple, a while back now. But I think Dailymotion and YouTube are the ones that I don't show, entire cartoons, because then I wouldn't be able to show as many cartoons and would take up too much time if I'm showing 7-minute cartoon snippets. But I'm showing like between 2 and 3.5 minutes at a time, and I try to find the best and funniest and most entertaining snippets of these cartoons to show, and that are most indicative of the way these cartoon characters, their personalities, and how they impacted American pop culture. Because I talk a lot before and after each cartoon. I talk a little bit about I give some trivia and some enlightening facts about these cartoon characters to the patrons. And so they're not only entertained, but they're going to be entertained, but they're going to be enlightened as well about cartoons.
And it sounds like a great discovery opportunity because I bet, I mean, having studied this so in depth, I'm sure there's cartoon characters that even people who think that they watched, who really feel steeped in cartoons, I bet there'll be some surprises, and they'll see something in a way that they haven't seen it. They may even meet some characters they'd never met before. So I'm really looking forward to that discovery piece because I always find that's what I love about libraries is we're always, there's always something on the next stack over that you haven't seen. So.
I guarantee that your patrons will learn things about characters they know a lot about already, will learn new things about them, and it'll just heighten their appreciation for these particular characters.
All right, on. Well, thank you so much, Marty. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me on here, and thanks for having me do this program because I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it.
So I've been talking just now with Marty Gitlin, the author of A Celebration of Animation, the 100 Greatest Cartoon Characters in Television History. Marty will be joining us live here on Zoom and on YouTube and Facebook on Wednesday evening, October 21st, starting at 7 o'clock. This is a program for all ages, and I hope that you'll join us then.